The morning sun cast long shadows across the Quantico training grounds as Amanda Rodriguez stepped out of her truck, a hot pink rifle case slung over her shoulder. The snickers started immediately. "Looks like Barbie's going to war," someone muttered from across the parking lot. Amanda didn't look back. She'd heard it all before. What they didn't know was that inside that seemingly ridiculous case lay the key to silencing every doubt, every whispered joke, every raised eyebrow. By the end of that day, 15 consecutive bullseyes at 1,500 meters would turn their laughter into stunned silence. But first, she had to get through the gauntlet.
Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Amanda Rodriguez had always been different. Growing up in Bakersfield, California, she was the girl who chose rifle competitions over cheerleading, precision shooting over prom dress shopping. Her father, Miguel Rodriguez, a retired Marine sniper, had taught her that accuracy wasn't about looking the part. It was about becoming one with your weapon, understanding wind patterns, calculating for atmospheric pressure, and maintaining the kind of mental discipline that most people couldn't sustain for 5 minutes, let alone the hours required for long-range precision shooting. The pink case had been a joke gift from her younger sister Sophia for her 21st birthday. "If you're going to be the only girl out there shooting with all those macho guys, you might as well make a statement," Sophia had laughed, presenting the bright pink hard case with rhinestone accents around the clasps. Amanda had expected to toss it in a closet and forget about it. Instead, something about the absurdity appealed to her. Here she was, a woman trying to prove herself in a male-dominated field, and her sister was essentially saying, "Embrace the fact that you're different. Don't hide from it." So she kept it. Through her years at the police academy in Fresno, through her stint with the county sheriff's department, and now here at Quantico, where she was trying to earn her place on the FBI's elite hostage rescue team. The HRT selection process was notorious for breaking even the most accomplished candidates. Out of the 43 people who had started the program 6 weeks ago, only 19 remained. Amanda was the only woman left, though 3 others had begun the journey with her. Sarah Chen had washed out during the physical fitness phase, unable to complete the obstacle course within the required time limit. Maria Gutierrez had excelled at everything until the psychological evaluations revealed she had anger management issues that made her unsuitable for hostage situations. Jennifer Park had voluntarily withdrawn after fracturing her wrist during hand-to-hand combat training. Now Amanda stood alone, not just as the sole remaining female candidate, but as someone who had consistently scored in the top 5 across all disciplines. Her marksmanship scores were particularly impressive. She had yet to miss a target at any distance up to 800 meters, and her groupings at longer ranges were among the tightest the instructors had seen in recent memory. Still, respect didn't come easy. The other candidates had initially tried to ignore her, then moved to subtle undermining, accidentally bumping into her during crucial moments, spreading rumors about her getting special treatment, questioning whether the standards were being lowered to accommodate her. When those tactics failed to shake her confidence, they shifted to mockery. The pink case became their favorite target. "Here comes the Princess Warrior," Jake Morrison would announce whenever she arrived at the range. Morrison, a former Army Ranger from Texas, had apparently decided that making Amanda's life difficult was his personal mission. He had the support of his buddy crew, Tommy Walsh from Boston PD, Brett Stevens, who'd served with the Navy SEALs, and Carlos Mendoza, a former Marine from Phoenix. "Maybe she's got a matching pink rifle in there too," Walsh would chime in, always ready with a follow-up jab. "Probably shoots glitter bullets," Stevens would add, causing the group to erupt in laughter. Amanda had learned to tune them out, but she couldn't ignore the way their attitudes affected the instructors. While none of the training staff openly supported the harassment, she noticed they were less likely to offer her encouragement, more quick to point out minor mistakes, more skeptical of her capabilities. It was subtle, but she felt it. The breaking point came on a Tuesday morning in late September. Instructor Davis had announced that they would be conducting long-range precision tests at distances up to 1,200 meters. The candidates would be scored not just on accuracy, but on consistency. They needed to demonstrate they could maintain their shooting standards under pressure, with time constraints and over multiple shots. As the group gathered their equipment, Morrison decided to escalate his usual commentary. "Hey Rodriguez, you sure that toy case can handle a real rifle? Maybe you should borrow something more professional from one of us." Amanda finally turned to face him directly. Morrison was 6'2", broad-shouldered, with the kind of perpetual smirk that suggested he'd never met a challenge he couldn't overcome through sheer force of personality. "I'm good, thanks," she replied evenly. "Come on, we're all friends here. I'm just worried about you embarrassing yourself out there. These distances are serious business, not exactly the kind of thing you'll learn shooting at soda cans in Daddy's backyard."
The comment stung because it revealed how little they understood her background. Miguel Rodriguez hadn't taught his daughter to plink at cans. He'd trained her the same way the Marines had trained him, with precision, discipline, and respect for the weapon. By age 16, Amanda was regularly placing in the top 10 at state-level competitions. By 18, she held the California junior record for longest confirmed hit at 1,400 meters. "I appreciate the concern," Amanda said, her voice steady but with an edge that made a few of the other candidates look up from their equipment. "But I think I'll manage." Morrison wasn't done. "Look, I get it. You've made it this far, which is impressive. But some of us have been doing this professionally for years, in combat zones, with lives on the line. Maybe it's time to be realistic about whether you belong here." The range fell quiet. Even the instructors had stopped their preparations to listen. This was no longer casual ribbing. Morrison was directly challenging Amanda's right to be there. Brett Stevens, apparently sensing that his friend might have gone too far, tried to lighten the mood. "Come on, Jake, let's just see what everyone can do. May the best shooter win." But Morrison had committed to his position. "That's exactly my point. Let the best shooter win. And if someone can't handle the pressure, if someone's more concerned with looking cute than performing professionally, maybe they should reconsider their career choices." Amanda felt something shift inside her. For weeks, she'd absorbed their comments, ignored their attempts to undermine her confidence, focused solely on her own performance. She'd told herself that her results would speak louder than any words. But Morrison had crossed a line by questioning not just her equipment choices, but her fundamental right to compete on the same level. She looked around the range, noting that all 18 remaining candidates were now watching this confrontation unfold. The instructors, too, seemed curious to see how she would respond. Amanda Rodriguez had always been different. Her father had taught her that sometimes being different meant standing alone. But he'd also taught her that when you stand alone, you'd better be prepared to prove you belong there. She adjusted the strap of her pink case and looked Morrison directly in the eye. "You're right about one thing," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Let the best shooter win." Instructor Davis clapped his hands twice, cutting through the tension that had settled over the range like morning fog. "All right, people, enough socializing. We've got work to do." Davis was a legend at Quantico, a former Delta Force operator who'd transitioned to training after taking shrapnel in Afghanistan that ended his field career but left his shooting eye intact. He was fair but demanding, the kind of instructor who could spot weakness from 50 yards and had zero tolerance for anything that interfered with training effectiveness. "Today's exercise is straightforward," he announced, walking toward the equipment table where several different rifle systems were laid out. "Long-range precision shooting at distances from 800 to 1,200 meters. Each of you will fire 5 shots at each distance. Your score is based on accuracy and consistency. Miss the target entirely and you're out of the program." A murmur rippled through the group. They'd all qualified at 800 meters during previous training, but 1,200 was a significant step up. At that distance, factors most people never considered became crucial. The Coriolis effect from Earth's rotation, minute changes in air density, even the shooter's heartbeat could throw off a shot. "You'll be using the Remington 700 platform with loopholed optics," Davis continued, gesturing to the rifles. "Same setup for everyone, same ammunition, no excuses, no special accommodations." Amanda noticed Morrison exchanged a satisfied look with his crew. They probably assumed that standardizing the equipment would eliminate any advantage she might have from familiarity with her own weapon system. What they didn't realize was that her father had trained her on dozens of different platforms precisely so she could adapt quickly to unfamiliar equipment. "One more thing," Davis added, his eyes scanning the group. "Given some of the chatter I've been hearing lately, let me be crystal clear about something. Everyone here earned their place through performance. Anyone who has a problem with that can pack their gear and leave right now." The range fell silent. Davis let his words hang in the air for a moment before continuing. "Morrison, you're up first." Jake Morrison stepped forward with the confidence of someone who'd never doubted his own abilities. He'd been talking a big game for weeks, constantly referencing his combat experience and implying that the others, particularly Amanda, were just playing soldier while he was the real deal. Morrison settled into position behind the rifle, adjusting the bipod legs and checking his scope. The first target was positioned at 800 meters, challenging but manageable for someone with his background. He took his time, controlling his breathing, waiting for the wind flags to indicate optimal conditions. His first shot rang out across the range. Through the spotting scope, the instructors confirmed a hit in the 8 ring, not perfect, but solid. Morrison's follow-up shots were consistent: 9 ring, 8 ring, 9 ring, and another 8 ring. Respectable shooting that put him in contention for a top score. At the 1,000-meter line, Morrison's performance remained steady. 4 hits in the 7 and 8 rings, with 1 shot clipping the 6 ring. Not spectacular, but professional. The 1,200-meter shots proved more challenging. Morrison's first attempt missed the target entirely, disappearing into the hillside beyond. His second shot found the 5 ring. The third missed again. His fourth and fifth shots managed to clip the target's outer edges, barely scoring hits.
Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time. So, if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. Morrison, final score: 37 out of 50 possible, Davis announced. It was a respectable performance that would keep Morrison in the program, but it wasn't the dominating display he'd clearly expected to deliver. Amanda watched him return to the group, his earlier swagger somewhat diminished. Walshay Stevens followed with similar results, competent shooting that met the minimum standards, but nothing extraordinary. Carlos Mendoza actually outperformed Morrison with a score of 41, thanks to better consistency at the longer distances. As more candidates took their turns, a pattern emerged. The 800-meter shots were manageable for everyone. The 1,000-meter distance separated the good shooters from the average ones. But 1,200 meters was proving to be the great equalizer. Even experienced marksmen were struggling with the extreme distance. By the time Amanda's turn arrived, the highest score belonged to David Park, a former Marine Scout sniper who'd managed 43 points with remarkably consistent shooting across all distances. Several candidates had been eliminated for failing to hit the targets at the longest range. "Rodriguez, you're up," Davis called. Amanda walked to the equipment table and began her pre-shooting routine. She'd learned from her father that consistency in preparation was just as important as consistency in shooting. Every movement had to be deliberate, every check systematic. She examined the rifle Davis assigned her, a Remington 700 with a loopholed Mark IV scope. The weapon was well maintained but unfamiliar. Amanda spent several minutes adjusting the stock to fit her shorter frame, checking the scope's zero and getting a feel for the trigger pull weight. "Taking your time there, princess," Morrison called out, drawing snickers from his supporters. Amanda ignored the comment. Her father had taught her that external pressure was just another environmental factor to account for, like wind or temperature. You acknowledged it, adapted for it, but never let it control you. She settled into the shooting position behind the 800-meter line, loading 5 rounds into the magazine. Through the scope, the target looked deceptively small, a black circle against the hillside that seemed to waver in the heat shimmer rising from the ground between her position and the target. Amanda's breathing slowed as she entered the mental state her father had called the quiet place, a zone of complete focus where the only things that existed were her, the rifle, and the target. Her finger found the trigger, applying steady pressure as she aligned the crosshairs. The first shot surprised her with its crisp break. Through her scope, she saw the bullet impact in the X-ring, dead center. The spotter confirmed her hit, and she heard a few murmurs of appreciation from the other candidates. Her second shot grouped within an inch of the first. The third, fourth, and fifth shots created a clatter that could be covered by a silver dollar. All X-ring hits that demonstrated not just accuracy, but remarkable consistency. 800 meters, 5 shots, 50 points, Davis announced. Amanda moved to the 1,000-meter line, aware that the chatter behind her had died down. A perfect score at 800 was impressive, but consistency at longer ranges would prove whether she belonged in the conversation with the top shooters. At 1,000 meters, environmental factors became more pronounced. The wind had picked up slightly, and Amanda took several minutes studying the mirage patterns and flag movements at various points between her position and the target. She made a mental calculation for wind drift and began her shooting sequence. Her first shot at the longer distance struck the 9-ring. Still an excellent hit, but slightly off-center due to a wind gust she hadn't fully compensated for. She adjusted her aim point and fired again. X-ring. The third, fourth, and fifth shots all found the center of the target. 1,000 meters, 49 points, Davis called out. The range had grown quiet, except for the sound of wind through the grass and the distant flutter of the target flags. Amanda's performance was now clearly exceptional, but the 1,200-meter shots would determine whether she could maintain that level under the most challenging conditions. At 1,200 meters, the target appeared impossibly small through the scope. Amanda spent considerable time studying the environmental conditions, noting that the wind patterns were more complex at this distance, with different air currents at various points along the bullet's trajectory. She loaded her first round and settled into position. This shot would require everything her father had taught her about long-range shooting: proper body position, breathing control, trigger discipline, and the mental fortitude to execute under pressure while 18 other candidates and several instructors watched her every move. The crosshair settled on the target center. Amanda's world narrowed to that single point of focus. Her finger began its steady press against the trigger. The shot broke clean, and Amanda watched through her scope as the bullet traced its arc across the 1,200-meter span toward the distant target. The bullet's impact sent a small puff of dust from the target frame. Through the spotting scope, Instructor Davis confirmed what Amanda already knew from the feel of the shot: dead center X-ring. A ripple of genuine surprise moved through the group of candidates. Morrison's smirk had vanished entirely. Even some of the instructors exchanged glances that suggested they hadn't expected this level of precision at such an extreme distance. Amanda chambered her second round, maintaining the same methodical approach. The wind had shifted slightly, coming now from her left at approximately 8 miles per hour based on the flag movements. She adjusted her aim point accordingly and fired. Another X-ring hit. The third shot required a different calculation as the wind had picked up to nearly 10 miles per hour. Amanda compensated and squeezed the trigger with the same steady pressure her father had drilled into her through thousands of practice sessions. The bullet found its mark in the center of the target. By her fourth shot, the range had grown completely silent. Even the instructors had stopped their usual chatter and were focused entirely on Amanda's performance. This wasn't just good shooting. This was approaching the realm of legendary accuracy that gets talked about in hushed tones years later. The fourth shot punched through the X-ring, grouping with the previous 3 in a cluster that would have been impressive at half the distance. Amanda loaded her final round, acutely aware that she was on the verge of something unprecedented. In the 15-year history of the HRT program, no candidate had ever achieved a perfect score across all 3 distance ranges. Several had come close, but the 1,200-meter shots had always proven too challenging for complete perfection. She settled into position for the 5th and final shot, blocking out everything except the fundamentals her father had ingrained in her: proper body alignment, natural point of aim, breathing control, smooth trigger press, follow through. The shot broke with textbook precision. Through her scope, Amanda watched the bullet's vapor trail arc across the distance toward the target. The impact came with another small dust puff, and she knew before the spotter called it that she'd completed something special. 1,200 meters, perfect score, Davis announced, his voice carrying a note of incredulity. Rodriguez, overall total 49 points out of 50 possible. That's the highest score we've recorded in this program. The silence stretched for several heartbeats before David Park started a slow clap that was quickly joined by most of the other candidates. Even Morrison's crew seemed stunned into respectful acknowledgement of what they'd just witnessed. But Amanda wasn't finished. She stood up from the shooting position and turned to face the group, her expression calm but determined. "Instructor Davis, I have a request." Davis raised an eyebrow. "What's on your mind, Rodriguez?" "I'd like permission to attempt something that might put this morning's discussion to rest once and for all." Morrison stepped forward, apparently having recovered from his shock. "What are you talking about?" Amanda looked directly at him. "You questioned whether I belong here. You suggested that my equipment choices reflect a lack of seriousness about this profession. I'd like to demonstrate exactly how serious I am." She walked back to where she'd left her pink rifle case, the same case that had drawn mockery from the moment she'd arrived at Quantico. As she knelt to open the latches, Morrison called out, "What's this supposed to prove? You already shot well with the standard equipment." "This will prove," Amanda said, lifting her personal rifle from the case, "that a professional doesn't need to look like everyone else's idea of what a professional should look like." The rifle that emerged from the pink case was immediately recognizable to anyone familiar with precision shooting. A custom-built platform based on the Accuracy International chassis, chambered in .338 Lapua Magnum. The stock was carbon fiber, the barrel was a match-grade stainless steel tube from Bartlane, and the scope was a Schmidt & Bender with more adjustment range and better glass than anything the FBI typically issued. "Jesus," whispered Brett Stevens, "that's a $20,000 rifle." Amanda began assembling her shooting kit, a custom bipod, a rear bag filled with sand to precisely the weight she preferred, and a ballistic computer that could calculate trajectories based on current atmospheric conditions. Everything was professional grade, but everything was also various shades of pink. "The case was a gift from my sister," Amanda said as she worked. "She thought it would be funny, but after a while I realized she was making a point about not hiding who you are. So I decided to embrace it completely." She held up a small pink device: pink ballistic calculator, pink chronometer for measuring bullet velocities, pink spotting scope, even pink earplugs. She looked around the group. None of it affects performance. It's just color. Instructor Davis watched this display with growing interest. "What exactly are you proposing, Rodriguez?" 1,500 meters, Amanda said, gesturing toward the hillside where emergency targets could be deployed for extreme long-range work. 15 consecutive shots. If I miss even one, I'll switch to a standard black rifle case and never mention this again. Morrison stepped forward, apparently having recovered from his shock. "What are you talking about?" Amanda looked directly at him. "You questioned whether I belong here. You suggested that my equipment choices reflect a lack of seriousness about this profession. I'd like to demonstrate exactly how serious I am." She walked back to where she'd left her pink rifle case, the same case that had drawn mockery from the moment she'd arrived at Quantico. As she knelt to open the latches, Morrison called out, "What's this supposed to prove? You already shot well with the standard equipment." "This will prove," Amanda said, lifting her personal rifle from the case, "that a professional doesn't need to look like everyone else's idea of what a professional should look like." The rifle that emerged from the pink case was immediately recognizable to anyone familiar with precision shooting. A custom-built platform based on the Accuracy International chassis, chambered in .338 Lapua Magnum. The stock was carbon fiber, the barrel was a match-grade stainless steel tube from Bartlane, and the scope was a Schmidt & Bender with more adjustment range and better glass than anything the FBI typically issued. "Jesus," whispered Brett Stevens, "that's a $20,000 rifle." Amanda began assembling her shooting kit, a custom bipod, a rear bag filled with sand to precisely the weight she preferred, and a ballistic computer that could calculate trajectories based on current atmospheric conditions. Everything was professional grade, but everything was also various shades of pink. "The case was a gift from my sister," Amanda said as she worked. "She thought it would be funny, but after a while I realized she was making a point about not hiding who you are. So I decided to embrace it completely." She held up a small pink device, pink ballistic calculator, pink chronometer for measuring bullet velocities, pink spotting scope, even pink earplugs. She looked around the group. None of it affects performance. It's just color. Instructor Davis watched this display with growing interest. "What exactly are you proposing, Rodriguez?" 1,500 meters, Amanda said, gesturing toward the hillside where emergency targets could be deployed for extreme long-range work. 15 consecutive shots. If I miss even one, I'll switch to a standard black rifle case and never mention this again. The proposal sent murmurs through the assembled group. 1,500 meters was beyond the range of most military sniper engagements. It was a distance where professional long-range competitors struggled to maintain accuracy even under ideal conditions. Attempting 15 consecutive hits would be ambitious for a world-class competitor with unlimited time and perfect conditions. Morrison laughed, but it sounded forced. "That's impossible. Nobody shoots 15 for 15 at 1,500 meters under field conditions." "Maybe nobody you know," Amanda replied evenly. Davis considered the request. This was clearly outside the normal training protocol, but it was also an opportunity to settle the tension that had been building for weeks. "If you miss, you're taking a significant risk. This kind of public failure could affect your standing in the program. If I miss, I'll accept whatever consequences come with it. But if I don't miss, I expect this conversation about my equipment choices to end permanently." Davis looked around at the other candidates, then back at Amanda. 1,500 meters, 15 shots, witnessed by everyone here. He paused. "You realize you'll be shooting in front of the entire training staff. Word of this will get around Quantico within hours." "Good," Amanda said. "Let it get around." 20 minutes later, emergency range protocols had been activated to extend the shooting area to 1,500 meters. Additional instructors had arrived, drawn by word that something unprecedented was about to unfold. Even Deputy Director Harrison, who rarely visited the training ranges, had appeared to observe. Amanda methodically prepared her shooting position, using survey equipment to confirm the exact distance and inputting current weather data into her ballistic computer. The target at 1,500 meters looked impossibly small through even her high-powered scope, a black circle that seemed to dance in the heat mirage. "First shot," Davis announced unnecessarily. The range had grown so quiet that his voice carried clearly across the open ground. Amanda settled behind her rifle, pink case open beside her like a statement of defiance against every assumption about what a professional sniper should look like. Her breathing slowed as she entered the mental zone that separated precision shooters from everyone else. The crosshair steadied on the distant target. Her finger found the familiar contours of her custom trigger. The shot broke with mechanical precision. 1,500 meters away, the spotting scope confirmed her first hit. "Target," called the spotter. 14 shots to go. Morrison stood with his arms crossed, watching intently. His earlier mockery had been replaced by something approaching nervous anticipation. If Amanda succeeded, it would represent more than just exceptional marksmanship. It would be a complete vindication of everything he'd questioned about her presence in the program. Amanda chambered her second round, made a minor adjustment to her scope based on the observed impact of her first shot, and fired again. Target. Third shot. Target. By the fifth consecutive hit, even the most skeptical observers had begun to realize they were witnessing something extraordinary. Amanda's shooting was displaying a level of consistency that bordered on mechanical perfection. The 10th shot rang out across the range with the same crisp authority as the first 9. Target. Halfway there, Amanda showed no signs of pressure or fatigue. If anything, she seemed to be settling deeper into a rhythm that suggested the pink rifle case had been holding equipment that was perfectly matched to her capabilities. Shot 11 cracked across the morning air. The spotter's confirmation came back instantly. Target. Amanda's breathing remained controlled, her movements economical and precise. Each shot followed the same ritual: chamber the round, check wind conditions through her pink spotting scope, make micro-adjustments to her aim point, and execute with the mechanical consistency that separated elite shooters from merely good ones. Shot 12. Target. Deputy Director Harrison leaned toward Instructor Davis. Where did she learn to shoot like this? Her file mentions competitive shooting, but nothing that would indicate this level of ability, Davis replied quietly. This is world-class precision. Amanda was now entering territory that few shooters ever reached, the psychological pressure zone where past successes can become mental obstacles. 12 consecutive hits at 1,500 meters meant that 3 more would complete something that would be discussed at Quantico for decades. The weight of expectation could easily trigger the kind of mental interference that causes even excellent shooters to miss easy shots.
But Amanda had trained for exactly this scenario under her father's guidance. Miguel Rodriguez had understood that technical skill was only half of long-range shooting. The other half was mental resilience, the ability to execute under pressure when everyone is watching and the stakes are highest. Shot 13 echoed across the range with the same authority as the previous 12. Through her scope, Amanda watched the bullet's trajectory, noting the subtle wind shift that required her to hold slightly left of center. The impact came exactly where she'd aimed. Target. 2 shots remaining. Morrison had moved closer to the firing line, no longer able to maintain his facade of disinterest. His earlier bravado had evaporated completely as he watched Amanda systematically demonstrate a level of marksmanship that exceeded anything he'd achieved in his military career. Brett Stevens muttered to Carlos Mendoza, "If she makes this, we are never going to hear the end of it." "If she makes this," Mendoza replied, "she deserves all the credit she gets." Amanda loaded her 14th round, aware that the atmosphere around her had shifted from skeptical observation to genuine anticipation. Even the instructors who had initially questioned her place in the program were now invested in her success. The wind had picked up slightly, not enough to significantly affect the trajectory, but sufficient to require another small adjustment. Amanda compensated and fired. Target. 1 shot remaining. The final round slid into the chamber with a metallic click that seemed unnaturally loud in the sudden quiet. Amanda closed the bolt and settled behind her rifle for what could be either a triumphant conclusion or a devastating failure that would overshadow everything she'd accomplished. At 1,500 meters, the margin for error was measured in millimeters. A tiny flinch, a microscopic tremor, even a change in her heartbeat rhythm could send the bullet wide of the mark. Amanda had trained thousands of hours to eliminate these variables, but ultimate success still required that perfect intersection of preparation and execution that defines championship performance. She controlled her breathing, letting her heart rate settle. Through the scope, the target seemed to waver in the heat shimmer, but her aim point remained steady. The crosshairs bisected the center of the black circle with mathematical precision. Amanda's finger applied steady pressure to the trigger, feeling for the exact point where the sear would release. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. "The shot breaks when it's ready to break. Don't force it. Don't rush it. Just let it happen."
The trigger released with perfect surprise timing. The rifle recoiled against Amanda's shoulder as the bullet began its journey across 1,500 meters of Virginia countryside. Through her scope, she tracked the vapor trail until the bullet impacted exactly where she'd aimed. "Target," the spotter called, his voice carrying across the silent range. 15 consecutive hits at 1,500 meters. The silence stretched for several heartbeats before someone, Amanda never learned who, started applauding. The clapping spread quickly through the assembled group, building into genuine appreciation for what they just witnessed. Deputy Director Harrison approached the firing line, his expression thoughtful. "Ms. Rodriguez, that was an extraordinary shooting. Where exactly did you learn those skills?" Amanda began securing her equipment in the pink case with the same methodical care she'd shown throughout the morning. "My father was a Marine sniper. He started teaching me when I was 12 years old. By the time I was 16, I was competing in 1,000-yard competitions. I've been shooting at distances beyond 1,500 meters since I was 18. And you never mentioned this background during your application process? You never asked about competitive shooting experience. The application focused on law enforcement and military service." Amanda closed the pink case and stood up. "Besides, I assumed my performance would speak for itself." Harrison nodded slowly. "It certainly has." He turned to address the assembled candidates. "What you've seen here today represents the kind of exceptional skill we hope to develop in all HRT operators. Ms. Rodriguez has demonstrated not just technical proficiency, but the mental discipline and consistency that define elite performance." Morrison stepped forward, his earlier hostility replaced by what appeared to be genuine respect. "Rodriguez, I owe you an apology. I was wrong about everything." Amanda studied his face, looking for any sign that this was another form of manipulation. Finding none, she nodded. "Apology accepted. But understand that my equipment choices aren't about making a statement or being different for the sake of being different. They're about using what works best for me." "The pink case," Morrison said. "I guess it's not really about the case." It never was about the case. Tommy Walsh, who had been notably quiet since Amanda's shooting began, finally spoke up. "That rifle setup, that's not standard FBI equipment. How did you afford something like that on a government salary?" Amanda smiled for the first time that morning. "Competition prize money. I've been winning precision shooting matches for 8 years. The equipment paid for itself." Davis stepped forward to address the group. "All right, people, show's over. Rodriguez has set a new standard, but the rest of you still need to qualify. Let's get back to work." As the other candidates returned to their training routine, Amanda packed the last of her gear. The pink case that had generated so much mockery now sat beside her like vindication made manifest. Brett Stevens approached as she prepared to leave the range. "Rodriguez, I want to ask you something. Why didn't you ever respond to the harassment? You could have shut us up weeks ago just by mentioning your background." Amanda shouldered her rifle case and considered the question. Because proving yourself with words is temporary. Someone will always question what you say, doubt your stories, or minimize your accomplishments. But proving yourself with performance, that's permanent. Nobody can take away what they saw here today. She started walking toward her truck, then paused and turned back. "Besides, if I'd told you about my shooting background, you might have treated me differently. I wanted to earn respect based on what I could do, not what I claimed I could do." Stevens nodded. "Fair enough. For what it's worth, you've earned it." As Amanda drove away from the Quantico training facility, she thought about the phone call she'd make to her father that evening. Miguel Rodriguez had always taught her that respect was something you earned through consistent performance over time, not something you demanded based on credentials or background. Today, she'd earned it in the most definitive way possible. 15 consecutive bullseyes at 1,500 meters while everyone watched. The pink rifle case sat in her passenger seat, no longer a source of mockery, but a symbol of something more important. The understanding that professionalism isn't about conforming to other people's expectations of what you should look like. It's about delivering results when the pressure is highest and the stakes are real.
Her phone buzzed with a text message from her sister Sophia. "How did training go today?" Amanda smiled as she typed her response. "I think I made your case famous." 3 weeks after the shooting demonstration that had become legend at Quantico, Amanda Rodriguez found herself in an unexpected position. Word of her 15 consecutive hits at 1,500 meters had spread far beyond the FBI training facility, reaching shooting communities, law enforcement agencies, and even international military circles. The first indication that her life was about to change came during a routine morning briefing. Instructor Davis approached her after the session with an unusual request. "Rodriguez, Deputy Director Harrison wants to see you in his office. Bring your gear." Amanda had no idea what to expect as she walked across the Quantico campus carrying her pink rifle case. The deputy director's office was intimidating under normal circumstances. Walls lined with commendations, photos with presidents and foreign dignitaries, and artifacts from significant FBI operations. Harrison gestured for her to sit across from his desk. "Ms. Rodriguez, your shooting demonstration has generated considerable interest from some very important people. I've received calls from the Pentagon, Homeland Security, and several allied nations asking about your background and availability." Amanda remained silent, unsure where this conversation was heading. "More specifically," Harrison continued, "the Secret Service has requested that you participate in a joint training exercise. They're developing new protocols for long-range threat assessment, and your demonstrated abilities could prove invaluable." The implications began to sink in. 3 weeks ago, she'd been fighting just to earn basic respect from her fellow candidates. Now she's being recruited for specialized operations that would typically be reserved for the most elite operators in government service. "There's something else," Harrison said, pulling out a folder marked with classification stamps. "The Defense Department has been monitoring precision shooting capabilities across all military and law enforcement branches. Your performance has earned you a spot on a very short list of candidates for a program that I can't discuss in detail, but I can tell you it would represent a significant advancement in your career." Amanda processed this information carefully. "Sir, I appreciate the recognition, but I came here to earn a place on the HRT. That's still my primary objective." Harrison smiled. "Ms. Rodriguez, after what you demonstrated on that range, your place on the HRT is no longer in question. The only question now is whether you're interested in opportunities that extend beyond traditional hostage rescue operations." That evening, Amanda called her father from her apartment near the base. Miguel Rodriguez listened as she described the day's developments, occasionally asking questions, but mostly absorbing the magnitude of what his daughter had set in motion. "Mija, do you remember what I told you when you were 15 and won your first major competition?" Amanda smiled at the memory. "You said that exceptional ability comes with exceptional responsibility." "That's right. People are going to want to use your skills for things you might not have considered. Some of those opportunities will align with your values and goals. Others might not. The key is knowing the difference." "What would you do, Papa?"
Miguel was quiet for a long moment. "I would remember that shooting is just a tool. What matters is what you build with that tool. If these opportunities allow you to serve your country and protect people who can't protect themselves, then they're worth considering. If they're just about demonstrating how well you can shoot, then maybe they're not." The next morning brought another surprise. Jake Morrison approached Amanda during their pre-training equipment check carrying something unexpected, a small gift box wrapped in plain paper. "Rodriguez, I wanted to give you this," he said, his usual swagger replaced by genuine humility. Inside the box was a custom-made patch designed to fit on tactical gear. The image showed crosshairs centered on a target, with 15 for 15 embroidered below in precise lettering. But what made it special was the color scheme. The entire patch was rendered in various shades of pink. "I had it made by the same company that does patches for special operations units," Morrison explained. "I figured if you're going to be famous for shooting, you might as well be famous for shooting with style." Amanda examined the patch, noting the quality of the embroidery and the obvious thought that had gone into the design. "Morrison, this is actually really thoughtful. Thank you." "Look, I've been thinking about what happened out there. I spent weeks trying to prove that you didn't belong, when I should have been focused on proving that I did belong. You never made it about competition between us. You just did your job better than anyone expected." The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Brett Stevens and Carlos Mendoza, both carrying equipment bags and expressions of curiosity about the gift exchange they'd witnessed. "What's in the box?" Stevens asked. Amanda showed them the patch, and Mendoza whistled appreciatively. "That's actually pretty cool. Very professional looking." "I was thinking," Morrison said, "maybe we could all get patches made. Different designs, but same quality. Like a class identifier for those of us who make it through the program." It was a peace offering disguised as a practical suggestion, and Amanda recognized it as such. "I think that's a great idea, but let's wait until we actually graduate before we start designing victory patches." The training session that followed was different from previous weeks. The dynamic between Amanda and the other candidates had fundamentally shifted. Where there had once been tension and competition, there was now a more collaborative atmosphere. Her exceptional performance had elevated the entire group's standards rather than creating division. During the afternoon tactical exercise, Amanda found herself naturally taking on leadership roles that the instructors had previously assigned to male candidates with military backgrounds. When the team needed to establish overwatch positions for a simulated hostage rescue, everyone looked to her for guidance on placement and fields of fire. "Rodriguez, you've got the best eyes here," David Park said during mission planning. "Where do you want your shooting position?" It was a complete reversal from the early weeks, when her tactical opinions were dismissed or ignored. Now her insights were not just welcomed, but actively sought by teammates who recognized her expertise. The exercise concluded successfully, with Amanda's precision shooting neutralizing 3 simulated threats at distances that would have been impossible for most of the other team members. But what impressed the instructors most was how she'd coordinated with the entry team to ensure clear firing lanes and minimal risk to hostages. That evening, Amanda received a phone call that would change everything. The caller identified herself as Agent Sarah Chen from the FBI's Critical Incident Response Group. "Ms. Rodriguez, I'm calling to discuss an opportunity that's just become available. We're forming a specialized unit focused on high-risk precision operations, situations where traditional SWAT or HRT tactics might not be sufficient due to distance, environmental factors, or threat complexity." Amanda listened as Chen outlined a program that would combine her shooting skills with advanced tactical training, specialized equipment, and deployment opportunities that spanned both domestic and international operations. The position would be based here at Quantico, but you'd travel extensively for training and operations. You'd work with the best shooters and tacticians from military special operations, other federal agencies, and allied nations. The goal is to develop capabilities that don't currently exist anywhere in law enforcement. "What kind of capabilities?" Amanda asked. "Operations that require precision engagement at distances beyond normal police or FBI ranges. Situations where a single well-placed shot could prevent catastrophic events or save lives that would otherwise be lost. Think counterterrorism, VIP protection, and crisis response scenarios that standard protocols can't address." Amanda realized that this opportunity represented exactly what her father had described, a chance to use her exceptional abilities in service of something larger than personal achievement. "There's one more thing," Chen added. "The unit is being designed around your demonstrated capabilities. You wouldn't just be joining an existing program, you'd be helping to create something entirely new." Amanda looked across her apartment at the pink rifle case that had started this entire journey. 3 weeks ago, it had been a source of mockery. Now, it was becoming the foundation for a career she'd never imagined possible. "Agent Chen, when do we start?" 6 months later, Amanda Rodriguez stood on a rooftop in downtown Washington, D.C., her pink rifle case open beside her as she assembled equipment that represented the cutting edge of precision shooting technology. The specialized unit Agent Chen had described was no longer theoretical, it was operational, and Amanda was its primary sniper. The mission briefing had been classified at the highest levels. A terrorist cell had taken hostages in an office building 12 blocks away, and traditional assault tactics were impossible due to the building's design and the perpetrator's strategic positioning. The hostages were being held on the 15th floor, with armed suspects positioned at windows that provided them clear fields of fire over all conventional approach routes. Amanda's position on the federal building rooftop placed her exactly 1,847 meters from the target building, a distance that pushed even her exceptional abilities to their absolute limits. The shot would require compensating for wind patterns that varied significantly across the urban canyon between buildings, atmospheric pressure changes at different elevations, and the psychological pressure of knowing that lives depended on her precision. Eagle 1, this is command. Target is confirmed in the northwest window, third from the left. Hostage is visible approximately 2 meters behind the target's position. Through her custom scope, Amanda could see the situation with crystal clarity. The suspect was using a hostage as a human shield while maintaining a firing position that threatened both the captives and any rescue attempt. A traditional sniper shot would be nearly impossible due to the angle and the minimal target exposure. But Amanda's specialized training had prepared her for exactly this scenario. The new unit had spent months developing tactics for urban precision shooting at extreme distances, working with equipment manufacturers to create systems that could function reliably in conditions that would defeat conventional sniper rifles. Command, Eagle 1, I have visuals on the target. Recommend positioning tactical teams for immediate breach once the shot is taken. The window of opportunity will be minimal. Amanda's rifle for this mission was a radical departure from standard FBI equipment. Built around a custom action chambered in .375 Chaytak, it was capable of maintaining precision at distances that exceeded most military sniper systems. The scope incorporated digital ballistic computation, real-time atmospheric monitoring, and target tracking capabilities that represented technology previously available only to the most elite military units. Even the pink color scheme had been adapted for operational requirements. The equipment was now finished in a pink and gray digital camouflage pattern that had proven surprisingly effective in urban environments while maintaining the distinctive appearance that had become Amanda's professional signature. Eagle 1, wind conditions are showing variability between your position and target. Command recommends holding for an optimal weather window. Amanda had been monitoring atmospheric conditions for the past 30 minutes, noting the complex wind patterns created by the urban environment. Downtown DC's building layout created thermal currents and wind shear effects that made long-range shooting exponentially more challenging than the controlled conditions at Quantico. Her training with the specialized unit had included scenarios specifically designed to replicate these conditions. Months of practice in major cities across the country had taught her to read urban wind patterns, compensate for thermal effects from heated buildings, and account for the acoustic properties that could reveal her position to hostiles. Command, Eagle 1, I'm observing a pattern in the wind variations. An optimal window should occur in approximately 45 seconds based on thermal cycling from the target building's HVA system. This was the kind of advanced environmental analysis that separated elite precision shooters from merely competent ones. Amanda had learned to treat the urban environment as a complex system with predictable patterns rather than random variables. Through her scope, she watched the suspect's movement pattern, noting that he shifted position every 2 to 3 minutes to check different windows. His current position provided the clearest shot opportunity, but only if she could execute during the brief window when atmospheric conditions aligned. All teams, stand by. Eagle 1 is preparing to engage. Amanda settled into her final shooting position, running through the mental checklist that had become second nature during her specialized training. Range, 1,847 meters. Wind, variable but predictable within acceptable parameters. Target exposure, minimal but sufficient for precision engagement. The ballistic computer incorporated into her scope provided real-time calculations, but Amanda's success still depended on the fundamental skills her father had taught her years earlier. Technical aids could enhance precision, but they couldn't replace the mental discipline and shooting fundamentals that form the foundation of long-range marksmanship. Command: thermal pattern indicates optimal window beginning in 10 seconds. Amanda controlled her breathing, letting her heart rate settle into the rhythm that would provide the steadiest firing platform. Through the scope, the suspect appeared impossibly small at nearly 2,000 meters, but her crosshairs remained rock steady on the tiny portion of his profile that was exposed beyond the hostage's position. 5 seconds to the optimal window. The wind indicators showed the brief calm period that Amanda had predicted. Urban thermal effects were creating a momentary lull in the complex air currents that had been disrupting long-range ballistics all morning. Window is open. Eagle 1, you are cleared to engage. Amanda's finger found the familiar pressure point on her custom trigger. The shot would require every element of precision shooting technique executed perfectly. There would be no opportunity for a follow-up if the first round missed its mark. The crosshairs settled on the target with mathematical precision. Amanda felt the trigger break with the same surprise timing that had characterized her shooting at Quantico. But now the stakes were measured in human lives rather than training scores. The rifle's recoil was absorbed by the specialized muzzle brake and recoil system as the bullet began its journey across nearly 2,000 meters of urban airspace. Through her scope, Amanda tracked the vapor trail until the bullet found its target with the precision that had made her famous. Target down, threat neutralized. Within seconds, tactical teams breached the building from multiple entry points, moving with the coordinated precision that had been planned around Amanda's shot. The hostages were secured and evacuated without further casualties, and the remaining suspects were captured before they could organize effective resistance. Eagle 1, outstanding work. Mission successful. As Amanda began securing her equipment, she reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. The pink rifle case that had once generated mockery at Quantico was now part of a specialized capability that had just saved lives in the nation's capital. Her phone buzzed with a text message from Jake Morrison, who was now serving with the HRT and had been following her career progression with the kind of respect that comes from witnessing exceptional performance firsthand. Saw the news about the DC operation. Proud to have trained with you. Similar messages began arriving from other members of her Quantico class, instructors who had witnessed her record-setting shooting, and even her sister Sophia, who had started the entire journey with a joke gift that became the foundation of a legendary career. But the message that meant the most came from her father. Mija, you used your gift to protect people who couldn't protect themselves. That's what being a warrior really means. Amanda packed her pink rifle case and prepared to leave the rooftop that had served as her shooting position. Tomorrow would bring new training, new missions, and new opportunities to prove that exceptional ability, properly applied, could make a difference in situations where conventional approaches failed. The little girl who had learned to shoot in the California desert had become one of the most capable precision shooters in federal service. And it had all started with a pink rifle case and the determination to prove that professionalism isn't about conforming to other people's expectations. It's about delivering results when the stakes are highest and failure isn't an option. 2 years after the Washington, D.C. operation that had cemented her reputation as one of the world's premier precision shooters, Amanda Rodriguez found herself standing before a gathering that would have seemed impossible during her early days at Quantico. The International Law Enforcement Sniper Symposium brought together the most elite marksmen from agencies across 6 continents. Representatives from Scotland Yard's specialized firearms units, Germany's GSG-9, Israel's elite counterterrorism forces, and dozens of other organizations had gathered to share tactics, technology, and training methodologies. Amanda was the keynote speaker. The auditorium held over 300 of the world's most accomplished snipers, tactical officers, and training specialists. Many had traveled thousands of miles specifically to hear her presentation on urban precision shooting, developing capabilities beyond traditional parameters. As she walked to the podium, Amanda carried with her the same pink rifle case that had started her journey. It had become her trademark, instantly recognizable in law enforcement and military circles around the world. Equipment manufacturers now produced pink variants of their most advanced systems, and several shooting academies had adopted pink color schemes as a tribute to the precision shooter who had proven that performance mattered more than appearances. 3 years ago, Amanda began, her voice carrying clearly through the packed auditorium. I walked onto a training range at Quantico carrying equipment that made people laugh. Today, I want to talk about what I learned from that experience and how it changed my understanding of what it means to be a professional in this field. The audience was completely silent, hanging on every word from someone whose shooting achievements had become the stuff of legend in their community. The first lesson was about assumptions. Every person who mocked my equipment made the same mistake. They assumed that appearance indicated capability. They saw pink and thought amateur. They should have seen precision manufacturing and thought professional. Amanda clicked to her first slide, showing ballistic data from her record-setting performance at Quantico. The numbers drew appreciative murmurs from an audience that understood exactly how exceptional they were. But the more important lesson was about persistence in the face of doubt. Not just doubt from others, but self-doubt. There were moments during that training when I questioned
whether I was fighting a battle worth winning, whether proving myself was worth the constant pressure to conform to other people's expectations. She clicked to a video clip from her Quantico demonstration, showing the 15 consecutive hits at 1,500 meters that had silenced her critics permanently. What I discovered was that exceptional performance creates its own credibility. You can argue with words, debate credentials, question backgrounds, but you cannot argue with results measured under objective conditions. The presentation continued for 45 minutes, covering technical aspects of urban long-range shooting, equipment innovations that had emerged from her specialized unit's operational requirements, and training methodologies that had proven effective in developing precision shooting capabilities. But the portion that generated the most response was her discussion of professional identity and the importance of authenticity in high-pressure environments. I kept the pink equipment not because I wanted to make a statement, but because changing it would have been making a statement. It would have been saying that other people's comfort with my appearance was more important than my comfort with my own identity. During the question and answer session, a German GSG-9 instructor raised his hand. "Ms. Rodriguez, many of our female candidates struggle with acceptance in training environments. What advice would you give them?" Amanda considered the question carefully. Focus on performance standards that can be measured objectively. Don't get drawn into arguments about whether you belong. Prove you belong through results that cannot be disputed. And remember that earning respect is a process, not an event. A British SAS trainer followed up. "Your specialized unit has achieved remarkable operational success. What do you consider the key factors in that achievement?" "3 things," Amanda replied. "First, we identified capabilities that didn't exist elsewhere and developed systems to fill those gaps. Second, we trained consistently at the edge of our abilities rather than settling for good enough. Third, we embraced innovation instead of defaulting to traditional approaches just because they were familiar." After the presentation, Amanda was approached by dozens of attendees, seeking additional insights, training opportunities, and collaboration possibilities. The FBI's Specialized Precision Unit had become a model that other agencies wanted to replicate, and Amanda found herself consulting on program development for organizations around the world. But the conversation that meant the most came from an unexpected source. Maria Santos, a young firearms instructor from the Mexican Federal Police, approached Amanda during the reception following the presentation. "Ms. Rodriguez, I wanted to thank you for what you've accomplished. I'm the only woman in my unit, and I've been struggling with some of the same challenges you described. Seeing your success gives me hope that persistence and performance can overcome prejudice." Amanda spent 20 minutes talking with Santos, sharing specific strategies for dealing with professional skepticism and maintaining confidence under pressure. It was a conversation that reminded her why her achievements mattered, beyond personal satisfaction. They created possibilities for others facing similar challenges.
That evening, Amanda called her father from her hotel room, as she had done after every major milestone in her career. "Papa, today I spoke to 300 of the world's best snipers about lessons I learned from a pink rifle case." Miguel Rodriguez laughed. "And what did you tell them?" "That exceptional ability, combined with authentic identity, creates opportunities that conformity never could." "That sounds like something your sister would say." Amanda smiled. "Sophia created more than she knew when she bought that case. She gave me permission to be different in a field that rewards sameness. That made all the difference." After ending the call, Amanda opened her laptop and began reviewing materials for her next challenge. The State Department had requested her assistance in developing counter-sniper protocols for embassy security worldwide. The project would require innovations in detection technology, rapid response tactics, and precision engagement capabilities that pushed beyond current limitations. It was exactly the kind of complex problem that drew her interest, an opportunity to use her specialized skills in service of protecting people who face threats that conventional security measures couldn't address adequately. As she worked, Amanda reflected on the journey that had brought her from a training range at Quantico to international recognition as a pioneer in precision shooting capabilities. The pink rifle case that had started as a joke had become a symbol of something more important: the understanding that professional excellence doesn't require abandoning personal authenticity. Her phone buzzed with a message from Jake Morrison, who had tracked the symposium coverage online. "Watched your presentation video. You've come a long way from proving yourself to 18 skeptical trainees." Amanda typed her response. "Actually, I think I'm still doing the same thing, just with a bigger audience now." The next morning, Amanda packed her equipment for the flight back to Quantico, where new challenges and opportunities waited. The specialized unit was expanding, with requests for training and consultation coming from agencies around the world. Her pink rifle case would continue traveling to ranges where precision shooting pushed the boundaries of what was considered possible. But the most important lesson from her journey remained constant. Exceptional performance, consistently delivered, creates respect that transcends initial prejudices. The little girl who had learned to shoot in the California desert had proven that authenticity and excellence, properly combined, could overcome any obstacle. As her plane lifted off from the symposium host city, Amanda looked down at the landscape below and thought about the next generation of precision shooters who would follow in her footsteps. They would face their own challenges, develop their own capabilities, and hopefully learn the same lessons she had discovered on a training range at Quantico. But her journey was far from over. 3 days after returning to Quantico, Amanda received a briefing that would define the next chapter of her career. The Director of National Intelligence had requested a meeting to discuss a classified program that pushed the boundaries of what was considered possible in precision shooting operations. The briefing room was filled with representatives from agencies Amanda had never heard of, their presence indicating the highest levels of government interest in capabilities her specialized unit had demonstrated. Admiral Patricia Thornton, the DNI's Chief of Staff, led the presentation with the kind of systematic thoroughness that suggested months of preparation. "Ms. Rodriguez, your unit's operational success has attracted attention from the highest levels of government. We're facing emerging threats that require capabilities beyond anything currently available to our intelligence and military communities." The presentation outlined scenarios that read like science fiction but were grounded in very real intelligence assessments. Hostile nations were developing technologies that could threaten American interests from distances and in environments where traditional military responses would be ineffective or politically impossible. "We need someone who can reliably engage targets at distances up to 3,000 meters under conditions that would defeat conventional sniper systems. Urban environments with complex atmospheric interference. Maritime platforms with unstable shooting positions. High-altitude scenarios where atmospheric density affects ballistics in ways we're still learning to predict." Amanda absorbed the technical requirements while considering the implications. 3,000 meters was beyond the effective range of most military sniper systems, requiring innovations in equipment, training, and tactical application that didn't currently exist. The program would be based at a classified facility in Nevada, with access to testing ranges and equipment development resources that aren't available anywhere else in the world. You would work with aerospace engineers, ballistic specialists, and technology developers to create capabilities that push the absolute limits of precision shooting. Admiral Thornton paused, allowing the scope of the proposal to sink in. This would be a multi-year commitment with operational deployments that I cannot discuss in detail. The work would be classified at levels that would limit your ability to discuss it even with family members. Amanda thought about her father's words regarding exceptional ability and exceptional responsibility. The opportunity represented a chance to develop capabilities that could protect American interests in ways that conventional military and intelligence operations couldn't achieve. But it would also mean stepping away from the specialized unit she had helped create and the mentoring relationships she had built with emerging precision shooters. Admiral, what kind of timeline are we discussing? Initial development phase would be 18 months, followed by operational deployment as requirements develop. The program is designed to be permanent, with continuous innovation and capability development as threats evolve. That evening, Amanda walked the Quantico grounds where her transformation from mocked trainee to elite operator had begun. The ranges where she had proven herself were quiet in the fading light, but she could still visualize the morning when 15 consecutive shots at 1,500 meters had changed everything. Her phone rang with a call from Sophia, who had somehow sensed that her sister was facing a major decision. "Amanda, you sound different. What's happening?" Amanda couldn't discuss the classified briefing, but she could share her thoughts about the broader questions it raised. "I'm trying to decide whether to take on something that would represent the ultimate challenge in my field, but would require sacrificing some of the things I've built here. What would Papa say?" Amanda smiled at the question that always helped clarify her thinking. He would say that growth requires accepting challenges that push you beyond your current capabilities, even when staying where you are would be more comfortable. Then you already know what you're going to do. 2 weeks later, Amanda found herself at a facility in the Nevada desert that didn't appear on any public maps. The testing ranges stretched to horizons that seemed impossibly distant, with target systems that could be positioned at distances that challenged even the most advanced ballistics calculations. Her first shooting session at the new facility was a humbling experience. The 3,000-meter shots that represented the program's baseline requirement pushed every aspect of precision shooting beyond familiar parameters. Environmental factors were manageable at shorter distances, became dominant variables that required completely new approaches to compensation and prediction. The rifle system developed for the program incorporated technologies that had never been applied to small arms before: computer-assisted ballistics calculation, real-time atmospheric monitoring, and stabilization systems that compensated for platform movement in ways that seemed almost magical. Even the ammunition was custom manufactured to specifications that achieved consistency levels impossible with conventional production methods. But technology alone couldn't bridge the gap between current capabilities and program requirements. Amanda spent months working with engineers and scientists to understand how traditional shooting fundamentals needed to be modified for the extreme distances and challenging conditions the program demanded. The breakthrough came during a test session on a morning when atmospheric conditions created nearly perfect shooting weather. Amanda had been struggling with consistency at maximum range for weeks, hitting targets but unable to achieve the precision levels the program required. On this particular morning, everything aligned. Her understanding of the equipment, the environmental factors, and the modified shooting techniques converged in a way that finally matched her intentions with actual results. 5 consecutive hits at 3,000 meters, each one placed exactly where she intended. The engineers and program managers who witnessed the shooting understood that they had just seen the birth of a new capability that would reshape how precision operations could be conducted. Amanda had proven that human skill, properly supported by advanced technology, could achieve results that had previously been considered impossible.
6 months later, Amanda received a different kind of recognition. The President of the United States presented her with the Intelligence Star in a classified ceremony attended by fewer than 20 people. The citation couldn't specify the operations that had earned the award, but the medal represented acknowledgement of service that had prevented threats most Americans would never know existed. Standing in the Oval Office, Amanda thought about the journey that had brought her from a training range where people laughed at her pink rifle case to the highest levels of national security recognition. The little girl who had learned to shoot in the California desert had developed capabilities that now protect American interests in ways that would remain classified for decades. After the ceremony, Amanda was approached by General Rebecca Morrison, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, who had been following her career with particular interest. "Ms. Rodriguez, your achievements have implications beyond precision shooting. You've demonstrated that individual excellence, properly developed and supported, can create strategic capabilities that nations cannot achieve through conventional approaches." The general paused, considering her next words carefully. "We're facing a new era of international competition where small teams with exceptional capabilities may be more valuable than large conventional forces. Your success provides a template for developing those capabilities across multiple disciplines." Amanda realized that her journey had become something larger than personal achievement or even operational success. She had proven that American innovation and individual excellence could create advantages that adversaries couldn't easily replicate or counter. As she returned to her work in Nevada, Amanda carried with her the understanding that exceptional ability, consistently applied, could influence events at the highest levels of international affairs. The pink rifle case that had started as a joke had become a symbol of something profound: the idea that authenticity and excellence, properly combined, could overcome any obstacle and achieve results that conventional approaches considered impossible. Professional success isn't about meeting other people's expectations of what you should look like. It's about exceeding everyone's expectations of what you can accomplish. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.